Hello and welcome to MASHmouth, a podcast covering every single episode of the hit 1970s sitcom MASH. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Vanessa.
Vanessa, today is an exciting day. Before we get into this episode, I want to talk about reboots and revivals. Something that's been happening just more and more lately. Feels like no show can ever stay dead. It's always got to come back. Everything's nostalgic. And I low-key hate it. But also, I love it when a thing that I like is coming back. Of course, I'm talking about Futurama coming back to us after being canceled for the fourth time 10 years ago. They're bringing it back on Hulu. I'm so excited, and I hope that it goes really well. Do you have any reboots or revivals that you are a particular fan of, or maybe hated?
So, I am notorious for not watching the revivals of things because even if they ended really poorly, I just really like the relic of whatever old show I was watching. So the only one that I really can think about watching was Will and Grace.
Oh, yeah.
When they rebooted Will and Grace, I was like so into it. I still haven't watched it, but I was very much like, I'm gonna watch this. Of course I haven't, but it's the only one.
I've seen a few episodes of like Will and Grace one, and it's like pretty alright. I haven't seen the original show, but they had that new one on for a few years, and yeah. I've seen a few episodes, and they were like pretty funny. So like, good for them for just being able to continue it at like roughly pretty good quality.
I think it got canceled recently, but I really want to go back and watch it because the ending of Will and Grace didn't really sit well with me, and so I'm excited to like come back to these characters in a better way many years later. Also, so this is also a show that I haven't actually watched any of the original, and I have never watched any of the reboot, but there's this show called Murphy Brown, and apparently the show itself back in the 80s and 90s was like amazing. The reboot was really, really good, and I really want to see it. I'm desperate to find the original Murphy Brown.
What is that about?
Oh my god, so it's about this I don't even know what it's about like too much. I've only seen like 2 or 3 episodes, but everyone I know is like, Vanessa, you need to watch this show. Everyone I know, meaning like my mom who watched it in its original run, she's like, Vanessa, you'd love this show. So it's about Candace Bergen is the main character, and she runs this newsroom, I think, and it's very like, I guess, feminist for the time.
Oh, okay.
And just kind of like making strides for like women in the workplace. I'm like, yeah, I really like that. That's cool.
Yeah, that seems like kind of your kind of bag. I see that. But I have to say that one revival that I was like super disappointed in was when they did that new season or 2 of the X-Files. I haven't seen like a lot of the original X-Files, but when they brought that back, I was like, oh, I'm super excited for that. And then I watched the first episode. It was like, oh, never mind. I just can't with this.
I'm shocked because this is, I think, the first I'm hearing that they revived the X-Files. That's
what?
Crazy
Oh,
to
they
me.
did it
I
a
didn't
few
know
years
that.
ago. I think we were still in high school. Yeah, they brought back, they had Mulder and Scully, and I know that Mulder and Scully low-key leave the series like towards the end of the original run, so like bringing them back was all cool. And I do love the first few original seasons of the X-Files. Like, I think that's very good television. So I was like super excited to see them try to like bring it back to the quality of the original like early run of the show. And then I just didn't like the first episode, so I never went back.
Oh, that sucks. That sucks. Because I know that I think, what was it, last time? 2 times ago? We talked about movies, like TV shows getting movies.
Oh, yeah.
And the X-Files did get their own
like
movie.
2 or 3 movies.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that sucks that the revival was, like, not great.
Maybe I'm in the minority for that, because I know it did run for at least 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't into it. And I think they even had Vince Gilligan back, like, writing some episodes.
Oh, wow.
Because he was, Vince Gilligan, creator of Breaking Bad, like, started as a writer on X-Files. And I think he wrote, like, 2 or 3 episodes for it.
That's really
cool. So maybe those are really good, because I think Vince Gilligan is an incredible writer. but I just wasn't sold on it. And, it happens. But anyway, let's move on from this to a show that I can't imagine will ever be rebooted, just logistically.
God, I hope not.
Our friends at the 4077 MASH, baby. Let's talk about this episode. So this episode was Dear Dad. Again. Hawkeye writes his father once again informing of all the various things that happened around camp. Notably, he recaps stories about Klinger, Radar, Frank, and a new surgeon who isn't quite what he seems. Vanessa, what did you think of this return to the Dear Dad format?
So, like I said last time when we had a Dear Dad episode, the first Dear Dad episode, I really liked the voiceover. I don't know, something about having a voiceover in certain episodes, but not like have the entire show be a voiceover, I really like. And again, I think I mentioned it last time that you can kind of watch the show through this lens that Hawkeye's talking to his dad. So this episode opens with Hawkeye saying, "Oh, sorry, I haven't written recently." And you can kind of get this sense that from the last episode, with whatever happened in the last episode, time has now passed. So I really liked it. And in general, I just really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was very fun and funny. I actually kind of liked it more than the first Dear Dad episode, I think.
This one was definitely more structured. It definitely had more of an actual plot. And I agree with you with your point on the narration. I really like narration as a narrative device, but I'm glad that this show only uses it sparingly. I think when they do use it, it's very effective. And I really like this one as well. This one was a lot of fun, and I also understand what you're saying with time has passed between last episode, because it does kind of feel like something's happened. I feel like Hawkeye's a little bit more gray in this one. I don't know if you noticed that. But I feel like his hair is just a little bit gray on the temples. And I'm like, oh,
that's so funny.
He's starting to go his glorious gray that he eventually does.
No, I didn't notice that. That's so funny. But yeah, definitely you can get the sense that time passed from such a heavy episode last time that they're moving away from that with this kind of lighter, more fluffy episode.
Yeah.
So do you wanna just start with how the episode opens, that opening scene in the OR? I loved that. I thought it was really funny.
Oh, when they're badgering Frank and everything, that was very good. And even Henry is like, Frank, how did you end up in the army? That's how fed up he is
with Frank. Yeah. So in this scene, they have there's a lot of shelling going on, and then the power goes out, and one of the it's a very opening scene, but one of the lines when the power goes out, Frank says, "Oh my God, who's panicking? No one's panicking. Don't worry, no one's panicking." And Henry goes, "Frank, you're panicking. Stop." And I just loved it.
Yeah, I loved when the lights were out, by the way. I will always note that this show is weirdly beautiful looking. Just really nice cinematography for some reason in this old sitcom, but when the lights are out and everything's dark, it just looks really nice.
Yeah. Then in this scene also we get this introduction of the new doctor character, Captain Adam Casey. And Hawkeye establishes right off the bat that he's this great surgeon. He's really good. He rivals Hawkeye. And that'll come into play a little bit later, but I just wanted to introduce Captain Casey, who crazy.
I know that his storyline kind of evolves throughout the episode, but I just want to say right off the bat that I really did like this character, and I kind of wish that this actor was able to stay because he had a lot of charisma.
Yeah, he did such a good job.
He's really stand out. I wish this was a recurring character, but also I understand how his story concludes, why he cannot be.
Why he can't be a recurring character.
Yeah, that was insane. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But this is, again, kind of a vignette structure. So what is the next little event that we cover? Is it Hawkeye eating at the mess tent nude?
No,
is that
no.
The next
right.
one?
So right before that is this scene with Klinger.
Oh, right. Klinger's the VIP of the Dear Dad episodes. The last Dear Dad was also pretty Klinger focused.
Yeah.
Maybe they were exclusively using him in this setting for a little bit before they decided to branch him out.
I love every episode with Klinger, but especially the early ones where it's kind of a novelty where he's in dresses and stuff. It's so funny.
I loved this one in particular because it kind of establishes Klinger's whole bit of him being in dresses, and everyone is like, well, that's fine. Hawkeye is just like, well, you look great. It's beautiful. Like they establish that he is doing it to get out of the army. But also, it's also established that they're all very nonchalant about it, and it's a good time. I love Klinger. I think Jamie Farr is a great comedic actor for this character. I think he sells him really well. It's just very sweet every time he's on screen because he's such a sweet character.
I thought it was really interesting, too, when Hawkeye's voiceover is supposed to be, like, writing to his dad, he established that Klinger was... like his role there at the moment is he's an orderly, which I just never knew before. And because I didn't know what Klinger's like actual purpose of being there was, I guess. He was just always there to me. I think it changes
over time.
Yeah, it does. But like I when he's there also like with Radar, it's just like I never knew it. I don't know. I was just so shocked when I found out when they said Klinger's an orderly. I was like, an orderly? How is he walking around in heels and is an orderly?
I don't know what an orderly is. I'm really, I don't know.
Oh, it's, so an orderly is basically somebody who just, like, transports patients. Like, he brings them into the OR and, you know, basically just kind of assists with bringing the patients into surgery and like transporting them back out of post-op and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Was there any standout moments with this little Klinger interaction before we kind of move on to the next segment?
So we see Klinger, and Klinger brings Hawkeye x-rays, and he's in a full white wedding dress. And I really loved the fact that Hawkeye's only kind of reaction was he complimented the dress. He was like, that piece is amazing. Like, it's not gaudy or anything. And and he's like, but the only thing you need is a slip because it's see-through and we could see your underwear.
Right. And Klinger's like, I have a million slips back in my tent. Again, this very nonchalant, like very chilled out, just wholesome. The way they handle Klinger, I think, is so fun. It's just always so fun. And I love that he commented on it being a white wedding dress, and like Klinger just stops and be like, well, I'm entitled to it. I'm a virgin. It was just so cute. Klinger's so cute. I love him.
And so after that, Hawkeye just basically is like, just get out of here. Like, what are you doing? Just leave. But then I should mention, just right after this is a very small scene, but it's very important. Hawkeye starts talking about Father Mulcahy, and Father Mulcahy is like gardening or doing whatever, and he hurts his back. So Captain Casey comes up and he's like, oh, Father, I can, if your back's hurting, I can fix it for you. So he does. He goes into Father Mulcahy's tent and like cracks his back or whatever, just kind of driving home the point that this guy is like really a talented doctor. And then right after, and then so Captain Casey says, oh, can we treat this as a confessional? And so Father Mulcahy gets really serious, like, yeah, of course, you know, I'm a priest, you can tell me anything. And Captain Casey goes, yeah, I'm not a real doctor. I was like, what?
Mulcahy just like collapses. He's like, oh god,
oh no.
And that kind of kicks off our like overarching plot. It's not returned to you for a little bit. We do get more just little vignettes, but I like how this one has kind of a dramatic structure to it where there is something building that like was missing in the last one. I really like the Captain Casey whole thing. I like his plot line and just how it resolves. I think it's very well done.
I thought it was really funny though that they kind of they drop this thing on us, on the audience, that this doctor that's supposed to be really good is actually not a real doctor. And then they don't return to it until like the last 10 minutes of the episode. You're like, what? Wait a minute.
Well, we had other jokes to do. We had a whole other skits, like Hawkeye going into the mess tent naked.
Oh my god.
Was my personal favorite. I thought that was so weird and funny and like Austin Powers-y when he actually leaves the tent. And all these things are like blocking all the, unmentionable areas. It was a good time. I thought it was so funny.
So Hawkeye and Trapper bet that because everybody is kind of
everything
just...
is so crazy.
Yeah, so Hawkeye makes a bet with Trapper that he could walk into the mess tent and order lunch completely naked and no one would bat an eye. And so Trapper's like, yeah, sure, you're on. So Hawkeye leaves the tent naked. And I like you said, there were just the scenes like kind of like covering his private parts.
Yeah, everything coming in at the right moment.
I love that. That was
Austin Powers.
It was so, like, for me, it was like you would see this on a sitcom now, like just kind of like blocking out the, private parts that can't be shown on TV with these very like convenient, like, oh, someone's moving this sign, someone's doing this, and you can't see. And I absolutely loved it.
Even though it is kind of an overdone gag, it's a very funny gag that it's the way how creative you can get with it. Or if like the Simpsons movie where it's like, I'm not going to talk about that, actually.
I know what you're talking about, though. I know what you're talking about.
But it's just a good bit, and he almost gets away with it until he goes into the mess tent, and just some guy, after, like, he orders food, I think, like, he's fully kind of in there. This guy looks at him and, like, drops his tray, and everyone notices. And I kind of wish that he got away with it. I kind of wish that nobody even commented on it, because that would have been even more funny.
Yeah.
But when people do notice, Klinger goes to him like, oh, that's very tasteful. Kind of parroting back what Hawkeye said to him, and it was like, this is just good. This is a good bit.
I know,
I love that. I would
that.
watch on YouTube.
This is definitely in one of those compilation videos that we were talking about a couple episodes back.
Butter my biscuits.
I really also loved that everyone just started clapping when they realized that Hawkeye was naked. I couldn't believe that right off the bat. They were like, oh my god, there's a naked man just right there.
And he looks good, probably. Let's be real. Hawkeye's a very handsome man.
He is. And then so Trapper says to Hawkeye, oh yeah, you owe me $50. Because that was the bet. And then Hawkeye goes, I left my pockets in the swamp.
Then he walks
that
out
line killed me.
With the tray, first putting it over, like, putting his food tray over his chest.
Yeah.
And then bringing it down, which I thought was so funny.
That was a bit of visual humor that was just, like, perfectly placed for me. I loved that. It was the whole thing was just so good. So then right after that, we get this scene with Radar and Henry. And I absolutely love this. It was really funny and it was really sweet and really wholesome. I absolutely loved it. Do you want to explain the scene a little bit?
Apparently, Mr. Radar, first of all, he brings Henry paperwork, as he always does. And it's just like, sign it. And Henry, like, takes notice of, like, what things actually are for the first time in his entire army career. And it turns out that Radar did not graduate from high school and is taking this, like, diploma equivalency course and is trying to get out of taking the final by having Henry just kind of mindless signing that he passed. And this whole bit was also, again, this is just a good episode. This is just a good, wholesome episode, really, because this whole bit is like very father-son, good vibes kind of whole thing.
First of all, I have to note that I can't believe that Radar does not have a high school diploma and he's just in the middle of a war zone. Like, that's crazy.
He's apparently 19. He, maybe just left high school, went into the war.
Yeah, of course. And I just think it's like kind of like going off of the theme of last episode of how do we send these kids to a war zone when they haven't even graduated high school. It's just, It's insane. So
we always have to make everything depressing on this show. We can't ever have just a funny bit.
It was something I noted. So Henry kind of refuses to sign this piece of paper saying that Radar had passed the test. And because he's like, I have a private practice to keep up with, like, my reputation, et cetera, et cetera. He basically doesn't care about his army reputation whatsoever, which I think is funny. So Henry's like, I'll administer the test for you, and then when you pass, I'll sign off. So Radar's like, okay, sure. Meanwhile, he gives Henry the test, and the seal to the test is broken. So it's kind of revealed that Radar peeked at the answers and he tried to memorize the answers, but he memorized them in the wrong order. So when Henry is giving him the test, he's like saying all of these answers to different questions. It's played really, really well and really funny.
It was a good reminder of how young Radar is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was just good, like, because I do think of Radar as like a smart character. He's even in this episode, they talk about how he has like telekinetic powers of like knowing everything, but like not wanting to take a test, being so nervous about it, even though he probably does know all this stuff, that he decided it was better for him to cheat to make sure that he passed, was very sweet. I love how they characterize Radar in this one, that he is like not cheating out of being malicious. He's cheating because he's extremely nervous about taking the test.
Yeah. They even say, like, Henry is talking to him, and Radar says, like, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just super, super nervous. And so at the end, Henry basically lets Radar pass. And I took it as, like, Henry was being so supportive throughout the whole thing. Like, hey, come on, like, you know this.
He probably does. It wasn't hard questions. Exactly.
And then I took it as Henry let him pass because he knew that he knew the answers, but he was just too nervous to really do it. And maybe Radar was a bad test taker. Maybe that's why he didn't have his, high school diploma in the first place. Who knows? But
tests aren't for everyone. U.S. education. Come on.
This was before No Child Left Behind, Ethan. Of course, So then right after that scene, we get to my absolute favorite scene of the whole episode. I loved this scene. So it's this scene where Frank and Margaret are fighting because for some reason, I forget exactly the reason, like Margaret says that Frank, only uses her for like her body and that she's smart and stuff. And honestly, I was really here for the fact that Margaret was like, yeah, I'm too good for Frank. But, we didn't get to explore that too much.
Yeah, she kind of dropped out after this little introduction of this bit. A Frank bit is good when you like it.
Yeah, I know. So after we get this kind of scene that doesn't really have much talking in it, but you get the idea that Frank and Margaret were fighting. Frank comes back into the swamp and he asks for a drink. And Hawkeye and Radar just completely freak out. They're like, you, Frank, want a drink? But you might loosen up a little bit. And I loved it. I thought it was so funny.
Yeah, first of all, I have to mention that when Frank goes into the tent, Hawkeye is just telling these awful knock jokes
yes.
to Trapper, and he's like, Trapper's just done with it, and Hawkeye's like losing his mind laughing at his own jokes. And it was so genuine, like it was such like I've never really had like a roommate kind of situation, but I felt like it was such a genuine like roommate thing to do. It was so cute. This episode was cute, man.
I know. I really like this episode. And with the knock jokes, right before Frank enters the tent, because they're just so bad, Trapper goes, Hawkeye, I never liked you. And I lost it at that part. I laughed so hard. And then the rest of the scene was also just really funny. Oh my god, I loved it. Then Frank proceeds to get like rip-roaring drunk. He is just gone. And in the next scene after he starts drinking, it's much later at night and he's got alcohol dribbled down his shirt and he's singing these made-up songs, and Hawkeye and Trapper are just like, Frank, stop, go to bed, that's enough. And Frank is just trying so hard to like have friends in this moment. It was so sweet. Yeah.
It reminded me of the bit where in an earlier episode when they're playing poker or something and Frank comes in and is kind of like defeated that they don't want him to join the poker game, and he's like, I can be a regular guy. Like, this is him being a regular guy. And it was yeah, I can see why this is your favorite. I'm honestly kind of surprised that it is, because normally you hate Frank, but again, this whole bit is very good and very humanizing for him.
Yeah, anything that really humanizes Frank is some of the best because he's so annoying as a character, but I really like it.
For him. Like,
I
him
know,
just,
me
like,
too.
drunkenly singing about everything, and, like, Hawkeye and Trapper not having any of it. Like, it was like, this man needs a real friend. And I know that, like, Houlihan is his friend, but, like, he needs a like, a buddy, you know?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't I don't necessarily support like drinking until you can't remember things, but maybe Frank just needs to drink sometimes. Maybe then he could just be a normal guy. I thought it was really funny though that he goes to Hawkeye and Trapper and he's like, "My brother used to call me Ferret Face."
Is this the first ferret face in the show, or is it said earlier? I genuinely don't know.
I don't know. I'm almost positive it said earlier, but I'm not sure. But I like to think that this is where Ferret Face comes from. Even if they did say it sooner, I
Yeah.
really like to think that Hawkeye and Trapper kind of just clung on to this.
Let's just pretend it is. Let's pretend if they said ferret face earlier, like this
No, they
episode
didn't.
happened earlier.
If they said Ferret Face earlier, no, they didn't. That's it.
Head canon.
So after this crazy scene with Frank just being so drunk.
Wait, I have to mention again, like the show being weirdly beautiful. There's no lights on, and then he's just like walking around with the one lamp above him, and Hawkeye just tells him like, "Oh, fall down." And he just does, and he like bumps the lamp and it just swings, and I was like, that's like evocative imagery right there. Any swinging lamp in the darkness, I'm like, oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful filmic moment.
Yeah, and that's how they end the scene too, where Frank is like, "Let's do something," and Hawkeye's like, "Yeah, Frank, fall down," and he's like, "Oh, okay," and he just falls down and like passes out. It was so good.
It was a good bit. I love drunk Frank. Let's get more drunk Frank. Let's see that boy be a loose cannon. So we go from this very like jokey, funny scene to a more serious scene where it is revealed to Hawkeye that Casey is not who he seems. He gets like a dossier basically saying like this guy is not a doctor. And Hawkeye kind of confronts him about that while they're in the OR, and it wasn't like overly serious, but it was definitely the most serious that this episode is ever. And this whole bit I think is again really well handled and really well written, and I like Casey despite him being a like criminal.
Yeah, honestly, it was kind of crazy. Like, I know that Hawkeye is not really, a stickler for rules, especially army rules.
Well, this isn't army rules. This is doctor rules. They're different.
But he's also passing himself off as a captain, too, and he's a sergeant. Like, he's not... His name is Sergeant Schwartz, not
right. He's
Captain
also
Casey.
Jewish.
Yeah, great.
Which comes into play later with how that everything resolves that he is, like, Jewish, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was crazy, because so Hawkeye, somehow Radar finds this out. I don't think Father Mulcahy said anything because, like, technically he can't because it's, like, priest person privilege.
Like confidentiality.
Yeah. So Radar somehow finds it out, tells Hawkeye. Hawkeye confronts him, and Casey goes, "So are you going to, like, basically throw the book at me? Or blow the whistle," is what he says. And Hawkeye's like, "No, I'm not going to do that as long as you promise to get off this compound in the next 24 hours and never touch a patient again without a license." And Hawkeye says, "But when you do have a license, like, come back and find me because you're a really, really talented doctor and surgeon." And I thought that was so sweet.
Yeah.
And then it blew my mind because Casey goes, "Yeah, I've posed as like a lawyer and an engineer and now a doctor, and I just never had the patience to get a degree for any of the things. Like, I can do all the stuff, but I just, And I was like, wow, that's insidious. I'm kind of shocked at this.
No, again, I really liked this character. I thought, especially the actor's performance was really good at selling him to not be insidious, but I do understand where you're coming from. Him being able to do literally everything without any training or certification was kind of stretching the bounds of reality, but I liked this bit that he is very, very good at everything that he tries to do, but just doesn't put in the energy to actually be certified in doing it. I thought that was like some kind of commentary on something that I couldn't quite like pick up on, but I'm sure that was like trying to say something about society at the time. Who knows?
I took it as like, don't forget to apply yourself, kids. Not really, like, but I know what you're talking about.
No, that probably was it, because you have to remember that any show like in the 70s, even like this adult one, still had to have those moral lessons and be like for families, and it was probably was a lesson specifically targeted at kids to motivate themselves. And like,
I don't know about that.
Maybe not, but like it probably was like a specific moral lesson.
I actually take it as maybe the opposite. Maybe the show was trying to say, like, look at all of these people who have so much potential, but, you know, if school's not for them, maybe, you know, they're not, you know, they can't do these things because we require so many degrees.
With Radar not being able to pass his test, maybe that was the thematic through line that, like, school isn't for everyone. I think we just stumbled on a deeper meaning to this episode than maybe was intended.
We're giving the writers a lot of credit for something that maybe isn't even there, but I'm gonna take it as that's what it is.
Yeah, dude. I really like this scene. This is maybe the most stern that Hawkeye ever gets, that he's like, there's no leeway. Like, you cannot, even if you're good, you cannot operate.
At least Hawkeye has like that moral high ground. That's a line that he's not going to cross. Like, you can't be operating on people, but not a doctor. No.
That's very dangerous. Yeah. And again, this actor is very good. I think he does a great job of being fairly sincere about it without sounding like an evil supervillain.
Yeah, and then right after that more serious scene, we get this funny scene, which was definitely kind of more just fluffy because the episode was essentially over at that point.
I love this scene, though. The scene is great.
Hawkeye is writing to his dad and says, "Oh, thanks for sending over your tuxedo. It's making our talent show like so much better." And so we cut to this scene. I think it's in the mess tent. And they kind of converted it into where there's this stage, and Hawkeye and Trapper and Radar and Henry are all like playing these instruments. Henry is conducting, and it's like the funniest thing to see him, waving his hands.
Like, and completely not doing anything. And they're all playing out of tune. And Margaret starts singing Blue Heaven, I think. What was the song? Do you remember?
I think I'm honestly not sure. I skipped past it because I didn't want to hear it.
Oh, okay. Well, you're more familiar with this than I am.
Yeah, I have seen that bit so many times that I'm like, I can't watch this again. But what I think is really funny,
that the song she was singing too is a song that they played before, but in Korean or in Chinese. Because I know the melody of it. I'm pretty sure that they played a cover of that in a different language over the loudspeaker, at least in a few episodes. Maybe the first one.
Yeah, that's interesting. Definitely let me know, because I want to know if we've heard this song before. That's really cool. So what I thought was really funny was that Loretta Swit can actually sing, and in this scene, she is singing so poorly. And I always think it's really funny when in shows, when an actor has a talent like singing or dancing, and then they make the character not be able to sing or dance or something like that as like comedy, because, you know, the actor who's playing the character can actually do those things. I don't know, just something about it just always makes me laugh.
Yes, I love that too. Because that takes more talent to kind of know what you can do very well and how to present it like you cannot.
Yeah.
I always find so funny. It's also one of my favorite things. And I really like this scene. I haven't seen it 500 times, so I just thought it was very funny. I love that Hawkeye was the backup singer. And he was like, I don't even want to be here. And then they try to do an encore, and then just everyone leaves. They're
Everyone's
like, no, we're gone.
I always think it's nice too when they do these things and it's charity events. I love when they're doing something that's like sweet.
Yeah. And they raised like $300 something for charity.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money back then. That's a lot of money now.
Yeah, really. But then in the final scene, we get Casey leaving and he talks to Hawkeye again. And this is why I say, oh wow, maybe Hawkeye should have, done something more than just like let this guy go.
Yeah.
Because Casey goes and he's like, yeah, thanks Hawkeye, thanks for everything that you did and you didn't do and stuff like that. And then Hawkeye sees that he's got a cross on his uniform.
Even
like
though
a cross
he's
pin.
Jewish.
Even though he's Jewish. And he is now posing as a priest. And wherever he's going next, he's going to pose as a priest, which is so just everything about that is just morally bankrupt.
That was actually kind of insane. No, I agree. I agree with you now, actually, that this man is low-key a supervillain, because that is a crazy thing to do. And
he
like,
100%
why?
did not learn his lesson from Hawkeye
And
almost catching him.
I thought it was so funny, the reaction that Hawkeye had to this. The guy like walks away, and then Hawkeye's like just makes a face, and he's just so like perplexed. It's incredible. Really funny way to end this story. When you think it's like a good lesson, and then it's like, no, actually, this guy is like the chameleon. Like he's just has no identity of his own.
Yeah, it's really funny. I really liked it.
He's gonna fight Spider-Man in the next movie.
I also wanted to note at this ending scene, Hawkeye is concluding his letter to his dad. And he says, give mom and sis a kiss for me. And I just always love pointing out continuity errors in shows.
He doesn't have a sister?
So actually, this is not really a spoiler for later episodes, but in later episodes, it's kind of established that Hawkeye is an only child and that his mom had passed away. And in the episode Moose, Hawkeye says, oh, I always wish I had a sister, kind of indicating that he doesn't have a sister. So it's like, what's happening here?
Yeah, I guess they just, back then, they didn't really care about continuity because they weren't expecting everyone to see every episode in order. So you kind of just did what was for the episode that you were writing. It's very self-contained, even if it contradicted other episodes.
I think it's funny also, though, that there was another continuity error in Dear Dad.
Dad.
When Hawkeye said that his dad was in Vermont or something like that. He's like, he's not from Vermont! But yeah, so then that's the end of this episode. I enjoyed it.
Good one. Good fun time. Do you have any trivia to bless us with, or are we...
Yes, I do. The trivia is actually about Captain Casey. Yeah, I think you're going to be blown away by this one. I think you're going to find this really
blown away.
So...
Okay, let's rock and roll.
So, Captain Casey, or Sergeant Schwartz, was played by actor Alex Henteloff. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. So this actor was in a lot of TV shows in the 60s and 70s, like most, guest stars on MASH were. He was on The Betty White Show, Family Ties, Murder, She Wrote, Dynasty, Night Court, St. Elsewhere, Columbo. He also played a regular on a show. Yeah, he also played a regular on a show called Needles and Pins, which I've never heard of, but I kind of want to look into now that I know he was on it, because I think this actor was really, really good.
Okay.
But no, Ethan, I'm not done.
Okay.
So, this is not confirmed, but it's too much of a coincidence to not be connected somehow. So, Casey's character, I believe, is based off of this really famous imposter. His name was Ferdinand Waldo Demara, and throughout the 20th century, he impersonated so many people. Like, he impersonated a naval surgeon, a civil engineer, a monk, a teacher, like all of these crazy things, and he like got away with it. And
what?
I thought it was really funny because of the jobs that he impersonated. Casey had also impersonated certain ones that he also impersonated. Like, Casey said that he impersonated an engineer and a lawyer, and that was two of the things that this Demara guy had impersonated. And then at the end, Casey goes on to impersonate a priest, and 2 times this Demara character man impersonated monks. And I thought that was so interesting.
Whoa, that's crazy. That's like I know this was based on a true story too, so maybe it's a similar guy. I don't think it's the same guy, but that Steven Spielberg movie, Catch Me If You Can,
Yeah, that's
with,
what I was
Leonardo
thinking of.
DiCaprio. That's crazy that like pre-internet people could just do that because records weren't kept very well. So it's crazy that there were multiple people who were famous for like not being who they said they were. That's crazy, actually.
It's insane. I'm gonna have to link this guy's Wikipedia page because he is just... I haven't even scratched the surface of this guy that Casey's based off of. It's so, so cool. And there was a 1961 movie apparently based on this guy called The Great Imposter. And now I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, same. I love stuff like that. That is really fun, and congratulations. You did kind of blow my mind. You
Yay, I've
dispensed
succeeded.
some very interesting trivia on this lovely evening of ours. Just to wrap up, we'd like to give thanks to Jacob Frier-Balco for being our technical consultant, Vanessa's sister, Melissa, for awesome cover art. Links to our music and social media are in the description. And as always, we'd like to thank you, our listeners. If you don't mind, send us an email or a tweet, anything. Tell us what you think. And until next time, sing your heart out at your local talent show, even if no one likes it. Goodbye, farewell, and amen.
Bye, everyone.